This is episode 3 where we talk about should you be converting to SWADE?
Is it SWADE? I am SWADE! The whole thing is SWADE! I can't have this.
We're here in episode 3 of SWADEcast, and I got Susan. I was hoping for my typical co-host of Mike being here too. We even moved the recording date, but he's sick, and he's a traitor.
He is a traitor.
I'm going to mock him for at least a week, and
Absolutely.
So help me God if he is not better by Friday for Baytown Mysteries.
But seriously, a swollen uvula?
Right?
I don't know that I'm buying it. I'm not buying it. Just swallow it, dude.
Well, from what I've heard, it's attached. That would be
Whatever. It's overrated.
That's why you get in there with scissors. Jesus, just toughen up. All right, before we get into everything, I want to thank our official sponsor, GameMasters4Hire.com. That's the number 4. Currently, webmasters still haven't finished the nice shiny site, so it takes you to a Patreon where we're handling all the billing, but you can be paired with the right GM for your game, where GMs are held to a standard and won't screw you over, like so many horror stories. Like at some point, we should probably have an email, send in your horror stories, because
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard so many of them. In fact, at least at this point, I'll even pull that in. Until we get a nice fancy email for SWADEcast, we'll just do acrossthetableproductions@gmail.com. That's my work email. I'll handle the deluge of no emails coming in. I need to add emails to the official website and stuff, because you can tag that at thegmtable.com, but I haven't.
Right.
See, I was going to do nice shiny stuff like that, but I was like, I'm going to upgrade my mic. And then the cord shorted out. So I got to upgrade my mic again. Right after I upgraded Mike's mic, because that was bad. That was bad.
So hang on a second now. So you're going to have a website and contact info, so they can email us at Across the Table
Productions.
Productions.
Yeah.
You could do Bobby at Across the Table Productions. at
DM Bobby at Across the Table Productions by the GM Table at gmail.com.
Exactly. You could do that. Or, we're both, on Facebook. People can always reach out to me on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter at SBenville, and that's another way that people can sort of reach out. And I know we
also have the GM's Table, or at the GM's Table on Twitter, which is why we renamed the GM's Table to the GM Table. Funny story, because my Twitter handle made it onto an article of unfortunate Twitter names, because it's also the GM Stable.
Which, if you think about it, is kind of what GMs for Hire is.
It is, so it works. There is also the GM Table Facebook page. So
Yes.
So it's not huge. We got a couple hundred people there, but grow those numbers.
Absolutely.
Unlikely, but... So, as I said, this is episode 3. We're already on beautiful side tangents, but I did want to cover episode 1 has premiered. As of this time, it's about 1 day and 4 hours. And we're actually doing decent. Of the last, 10 videos the channel's put up, which has been, all the SWADE videos and the stuff, they've been doing pretty well. We're number 4.
That's really good.
Yeah, we're number 4 on growth for the channel.
Great.
So
that's awesome.
It's doing decent. Again, we're not on podcast form yet. I'm looking to get a good stable back, and then, or stable, looking to get a good GM stable. Mm-hmm. We're looking to get a good backlog by the time we do that. Plus, it kind of pushes the YouTube and all of that. But I think we're going with Podbean after talking to Dan, but we're going to set that up as an audio-only podcast in about a month or 2.
Right.
So by that point,
people asking us about that. So that's key.
Oh yeah, no, I'm well aware, because I wrote gaming news and stuff for 3 years, and no one looked at it. And when I was writing, everyone was like, "Why don't you just do videos? Because it's so much easier." And as soon as I started doing videos, everybody started going, "I don't have time to watch videos. Couldn't you just do written articles?" I'm like, I did that for 3 years.
Or just do audio.
Yeah. It's not like we don't have the GM Table podcast network.
Right. Well, and it's really funny because I was talking to somebody who was complaining about the fact that the show they really liked is just on YouTube, but they, needed to listen to it at work, and why wasn't it a podcast? And I'm like, just turn on the YouTube and turn your phone over so you can't see it, and you can just hear it. Simple solutions. Very simple.
Oh my God.
Solutions.
Or have an earbud.
Yeah.
Run an earbud.
Exactly.
I'm actually not wearing my nice headset because I've been editing Baytown Mysteries, and it's not over the ear. It's like just on top of the ear. So my ears hurt. Yeah.
I can
So
understand that.
I'm just shifting to the bud, which was headphones till my dog ate one. So I just chopped it. And now I'm Secret Service style. Only
You look good. You look good.
budget.
You look good. Yep.
Anyways, at some point we need to get to our topic. I think we have definitely covered what we've been up to.
Yep.
Well, I guess the only other thing, because you're a part of this, is it's not recorded. It's not for anyone to view, so it's only us, but we're in an ETU campaign.
We are.
Yeah.
We are, yes. We just started last weekend.
Yep.
It's my first foray into ETU as a player. I've never jammed it either. And it's a very interesting group of people that we have playing. And by that, I'm referring to the players. So that should be it'll be really interesting to see how it goes, because it's I feel like there's going to be a lot of sort of side missions and, hey, let's go do this stupid thing to just irritate Bobby.
What's really funny about that, though, is we decide to do fast XP, where you guys get an advanced every session.
Yeah.
So there's no time for that shit.
Try telling that to your wife.
4 sessions is going to be a year in game.
Yeah. A semester.
No, because 2 advances is a semester, because it's a year per rank, and 4 advances is a rank.
I thought it was a semester per rank.
No. I might do that. I might actually just make it a semester per rank. And then it's like a game that goes well into legendary, and it goes back to like the game length of now it'll be 16 sessions.
Yeah.
But 8 months isn't that bad of a commitment.
Well, I don't think any of us are investing in our academic skills, so we're all going to fail.
That's fine. The thing is, and this is going to start tying into our topic and stuff, so I'm even cooler with it. One of those things is, ETU, you're actually supposed to take either a midterm or a final every advance.
Right.
Because your first advance is midterms, your second advance is finals, and that's a semester.
Right, that's right.
So in ours, that would be a major exam every session. That's not happening.
That's true.
I'm going to incorporate it, and I think I'm going to do like 1 big test per year instead to like shift to that flow of the game. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was like, no. Every episode's a midterm or a final. Before we even got started, I was like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Or you can just call pop quizzes and make us all just roll once.
That actually reminds me, I still have vodka here at my desk.
Oh, good God.
Well, we went grocery shopping the very next day, and now the freezer's full, so I can't put the vodka in it.
Oh, no, well, it's clearly you need to put the ice cubes somewhere else.
No, it was mostly stuff for the 5-year-old. So, pizzas and way more ice cream than I'm okay with us buying. But
and having
whatever.
Yep.
Anyways, our topic, or I guess our first topic, our topic A, is should you be converting to SWADE? More specifically, not like, should you talk your group into playing Savage Worlds and stuff? No, I always advocate that.
Right.
But if you're already running a deluxe game and you're mid-campaign, should you convert it over to SWADE? So first I'll ask you, Susan, like the easy part before we go in depth. What do you think?
Well, I think it totally depends on what you're running. If you're running, one of the established settings like Deadlands or ETU or Rifts or something like that, where it would be really, really difficult to actually run that game, then I would say no. Stick with what you got. Stick with what you know, particularly because your characters at that point, if you're mid-campaign, are really well designed to the old rules. And then, and wait until, the conversion kit comes out. I am not running a really detailed setting like that. So the setting that I'm using, which is Herald, is kind of like setting light in many ways. Like, it doesn't have a lot of its own mechanics and its own rules and its own this and that. And so my players and I decided, and the other thing is my players are pretty new, so they're not deeply indoctrinated already into the old deluxe rules. So I didn't want to spend another year having them become experts in the old rules, and then next time we start a new campaign, oh, hey, by the way, there's been this whole new rule thing. So for me, it was a pretty easy decision to convert to SWADE, and it's been moving pretty smoothly, which either suggests that my players didn't really understand Deluxe in the first place, or it just reflects on how great I am at GMing. I'm going to go.
Yeah, what's funny is when I first got the alpha for SWADE, I was in a similar boat. I wasn't running a published setting anymore. Now, the characters came from an ETU game, and they had ended up dimension hopping following this lich.
Right, yeah.
And stuff. Real fun game, but the other thing was they were the equivalent of veterans at that point. We were almost 2 years into the campaign, all of that. And once I got to see how different SWADE was, I was like, no. Now I had the discussion, we can continue this in Deluxe or we can end it now and go to SWADE, but I'm not converting everybody's characters. And it's not just that I don't want the work, but I was already very quickly seeing some people's characters weren't oh, you end up with a couple extra skill points. Edges functioned fundamentally differently.
Right.
Builds just, I won't say didn't exist, but were completely different. Anyone built around Streetwise was totally new, totally changed.
Right.
So we had that talk and we were like, all right, well, we already kind of ended ETU and it became this weird thing. And it was going to be an actual play podcast. And we were 5 episodes in and it was really awesome. Someone wrestled a dinosaur.
It was hysterical.
It was. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
But veteran characters at that point, we were like, no.
Yeah.
There was just too much conversion.
That was actually the game I was early on that I was going to jump into.
Mm-hmm.
When you were moving to, what was it, Last Parsec or something?
Yeah, we were going to be, the game plan was they had ended up kind of at this center of a multiverse type thing.
Right.
On Adventure Island. And they were going to have to be dealing with this lich that could jump universes. So he was going to hop to different worlds and they had to follow him. And the very next one was we were going to do Iron Gate from Last Parsec. Right. And our game plan was actually to go backwards a greatest hits of the Savage settings in reverse order. But we had this huge storyline planned and we were like, yeah, but we want to play SWADE. So
and it's kind of funny because now we're playing Monster of the Week.
Yeah.
Oops.
Which I could be doing that exact same campaign in Monster of the Week.
Right.
It wouldn't be a Savage feeling though.
No.
The Dinosaur Island chasing, trying to outrun raptors while one of the players had the actual monster truck Bigfoot.
Uh-huh.
And then they used Bigfoot to trip a T-Rex while another character was climbing up him with a dagger.
Right.
You could say it, but it wouldn't feel the same as Savage Worlds.
No.
Yeah.
And I think I liked the fact that you guys were kind of working on an homage to all the, and it sort of reflects the fact that you all probably have played most of those games. At least pieces of them.
It was kind of suiting that was the end of Deluxe because it was here's the greatest hits of Deluxe.
Right. The other thing that made me sad was we were playing that 50 Fathoms game.
Mm-hmm.
And and we had made the decision to switch over to SWADE rules, and I think we all converted our characters, which for my character was pretty easy because my character is just basically a slash and dagger person, particularly lethal. But you had a mage, and I don't know how hard it was or
it was I don't want to say it was a nightmare because my career's knowing this system.
Right, of course.
So, but even for me, it was difficult because I wasn't just a water mage. Now, luckily, my race was from the setting books, and none of that changed. But I was also elderly. Right. And young and elderly were edges or hindrances that got drastically changed So I was like, oh, my entire character has shifted because I took this one hindrance. So I had to look and shift and tweak all of that stuff on top of, the magic. Mostly for the powers and being a mage, SWADE is way friendlier to casters. So I was just like, oh, okay, so I get some extra powers and I get power points back. Like, I can create fresh water kind of all day now, but...
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I miss Dr. Glug. I mean...
I do too. I love Dr. Glug.
The old naked Kraken running around in the buff with his jar of leeches, I thought was pretty funny.
It was like if the writer... Because I don't want to say it was like if Lovecraft wrote Zoidberg. It was more like if the writers of Futurama tried to write Zoidberg into Lovecraft.
Yes. Yeah, that's closer.
That's much closer. Who then became addicted to opium after trying it once. And was like, I love this, but he thinks it's oolong tea.
Yes.
So he thinks he's addicted to tea. Oh, man.
We got to talk Dan into switching back to that, because I would like to, every 3 or 4 months, just go visit those characters, push them down some other...
weird route.
Yeah, exactly. They were good characters, and we were having fun doing that. So now we're playing ETU.
Yes.
And we just started. So we created our characters using SWADE.
Yes.
We had to do a couple of different things.
We had to do a lot of conversion.
Right.
Because I want to point out, this also isn't my only ETU game using SWADE. Because one of the Game for Hires games I'm running is ETU. And you guys are kind of getting after I was already like, oh, I know how to update for SWADE, and updated it and was like, this doesn't work.
Right. So what are the key struggles or challenges that you have in that?
Honestly, and what kind of sucks is this is going to be relevant to a lot of settings. Last Parsec was one that came up, was how knowledge skills are used.
Right.
Because, they took like the highlights, like the most common, most frequent knowledge skills, and went, now they're just skills.
Right.
Cool. But like I was saying, like ETU, all your majors were different knowledge skills. And in my paid game, I set that up as, well, it's all academics. I just kept it as academics because ETU has that extra level of difficulty that, everything converts easily. Well, ETU has a derived stat called academics, and you made a new skill called academics. This is going to be confusing.
Right, it absolutely is. Every time, by the way, just so you know, every time you and I talk about it, I get confused.
Yeah.
Right, because I think you're talking about the derived skill, and then are we talking about and then we say derived skill, so it's derived stat of academics.
Yeah. Which
is the sort of -1 to 2 or something like that.
Yeah, it can be positive or negative based on your extracurriculars and situations and stuff. But that was the big reason why I decided all of the majors were, again, in my paid game, were specializations in academics. So when it says, you have a +2 academics, it's +2 to the academics skill. It just makes sense. Right. Now, I did find that, this means as soon as you take academics, you have a major. Which is kind of fine. It works. The rules for being undeclared in ETU assume you don't have a skill for it, and it's make a smarts roll with penalties, so it kind of works. But it essentially means even educated ETU characters are dumber than all other characters with academics in every other setting.
Right. But see, here's the difference a difference in interpretation that you and I have. Because when I look at the SWADE rules and the way that academics is described, and the way that they sort of converted, the knowledge skills into SWADE, is I look at academics, and to me that looks like a liberal arts degree. That looks like, if you were a history, English, humanities kind of major. If you were a science major, if you were biology, chemistry, whatever, you would take science, right? And that science is knowledge science.
In general, I would 100% do that.
Right.
I made the choice where everything falls under academics because of that derived stat.
Right, and that was the thing where when you and I were talking about it, and I was trying to set up my character, and I kept saying, well, her major is an electrical engineer. So it made more sense to me to take electronics. because that is under SWADE, how they converted that knowledge function, or that prior knowledge skill of like electrical engineering or whatever would have been converted over to electronics. If I was just taking a regular character, that's what I would have switched to.
Yeah, which you and I had a lot of long conversations because it was this really tricky thing of, while they converted it over, it's also not the same skill anymore.
Right.
In a lot of ways, like, electronics is also the skill you'd have if you went to, like, Votech school. Or were just, like, I don't want to say a plumber's assistant, an electrician's assistant for enough years. So the way I just kind of had to interpret it for ETU was academics is the theoretical use of things. It's how well you test. It's your book knowledge, all of that. Where things like science is also your knowledge of using the lab of equipment, of reading results. Because taking a test isn't typically like, oh, translate these results. It's, what was this in this chapter, blah, 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 blah. Right. So academics is that. Academics is almost like the standardized test skill.
Right.
While electronics, science, and all of that, I was like, well, that's the applied knowledge. And that made sense also because ETU, even in Deluxe, had this weird issue. It's an issue that came up a lot because I think a lot of people in my years of running it in different campaigns thought they could kind of get around this, was you can be pre-med. And you can take knowledge pre-med, but you cannot use that skill to heal people.
Right.
You still have to take healing. So I just ran it the same way.
Right.
You can have academics, electrical engineering, and know what's in all the books, but you need electronics to actually build a radio.
Right. And I think one of the example you used that made sense, although it's frustrating, I'm sure, for some people, is like what does hacking mean? That would be like the same thing as knowledge computer science versus having the actual skills to sit there in your basement in the dark, hacking into the Pentagon's database or something.
I will say the one thing that bugs me with that is how the skills are written. Is knowledge electronics is still how you know how to write code to make a computer program, but hacking is how you break codes.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I would house rule that the other way.
Yeah, I would too. I would just say everything computers is hacking.
Right.
Everything physical electronics, transistors, all of that is electronics. But how they wrote it and how it's worded, it's like there's overlap here when something once the skills have gotten this broad, they should be more distinct.
Right.
And electronics, repair, and hacking are all siblings.
Well, and the whole thing, like, if you want to fix the broken VCR, then you have to have repair, right?
Yeah.
And electronics, and you have to roll at the lowest.
But I can build a VCR from scratch with electronics.
Right.
That's specifically called out in the book, too, is like, well, but repairing electronics is still repair. And I'm like, but I build them with electronics.
Right. So when I was creating my character, because of course we're describing my character, that was the frustrating thing, because I felt like I was having to burn so many skill points. And we were doing the setup where you have the 5, whatever, the normal stats, athletics, common knowledge.
Yeah, we did the core skills, and I did 12 skill points, because even though it's a modern setting, you guys are supposed to be young, slightly inexperienced, so 12 skill points work.
I've got a problem with that, except that if you're looking at creating these characters, you're like, I basically am burning slots with, now I've got to take academics, electrical engineering, I got to take repair, and I have to take electronics, pretty much so that I can fix a VCR. And use one. And so I think the one thing, maybe if I was going to do ETU, I would probably do the 12 skill points, but I would treat I would do 13. I would do a 13th skill point, which is just your major.
Or skill academics, yeah.
Right. So that's what I mean. It would be, in fact, on my skill sheet when I wrote it down, I didn't write it down as academics. I wrote it down as a major, and then I put the die type. But I think I would just do that as that's the way, in my mind, I would convert it. That way, you're doing your normal character creation, and you're able to focus on that. And then there's this extra layer of ETU-ness, which is your major, and then you just take a D6 or a D4 or whatever in that. And I would actually, I don't know, I'm just rambling now about it. But I think I would probably, for your freshman year, I would say you can only take a D4 in that. And and
it can only go up 1 die type per year type thing. That'd be an interesting way to do it. I toyed with academics being a core skill. The tricky thing was in ETU, you can choose to be undeclared, which would be no academics. which is where it got that iffy situation. Now, also, one of those things we should bring up, because I didn't say it, I did skill specialization for the other group. I didn't do that with you guys. I stole from third party and did defining interests.
Explain that a little bit more. What is it?
So defining interests, a few settings use them slightly differently. Some you get them for free, some they cost a skill point per interest. And either way, you typically get to have a maximum equal to half your smarts die type. And what they are is it's a +1 bonus. They don't stack, and they're kind of these circumstantial bonuses based on what you're interested in. So, like, your defining interest would be electrical engineering. So whether it's academics, electronics, repair, any of it that could use electrical engineering, if it fell under your major, you're getting a +1 for 1 skill point, which is essentially like a half edge.
Right, which is great. Yeah, no, I think that's a cool bridge.
I was actually really surprised that didn't end up in SWADE. Because SWADE has a good bit of like their updates and tweaks and stuff showed up in third-party books. Mm-hmm. And people really loved them and they kind of adopted them. And defining interests are all over some third-party books, and people love them. I hope that my kid in the bathroom didn't just pick up. Well,
we didn't know anything about that until you actually just pointed out your kid is in the bathroom.
Yeah, well, I'll chop. That's easier to chop. Now I won't. But the thing about it is it would also serve the function of what knowledge was in Deluxe and earlier. For only 1 skill point cost, would be optional, and put it in the optional rules or the setting rules. Mm-hmm. And I think it would have fixed a lot of the conversion problems we're having with SWADE.
Right.
So I'm really surprised it didn't just get added.
So that's a tip that folks can use as they're trying to, and this is particularly true, I think, in those situations where a particular character has, you're mid-campaign, you're trying to convert over, and your player has really committed a lot of their advances and upgrades into really specializing a character. And in one of my games, and I did not switch. It's the one aspect of the game I did not switch, was I let them keep their knowledges, because their knowledges were very specific, very, very character tied, and I used them a lot. One of them had 2 knowledges. I think wherever they had 2 knowledges, I smushed them into one. I think I had one character who had knowledge, geography, and knowledge, sort of contemporary politics. And so I merged that into a knowledge world affairs with a specialization in Central Europe. And, another character had knowledge mythos, which is specific to that setting book. And then I kind of broadened it out to sort of knowledge of the occult.
Yeah, which, to be in the SWADE conversion, that is what they did. Like, all of those kind are now just occult.
Right. So that helps, but all of the commitment that they had already made to their character development and whatnot, and then we actually are also tying their connections, when they take connections as an edge, it ties to their knowledge, and it has to flow from that sort of character. Yeah. At least in my game.
No, I honestly do think, and I don't want this to be like we're bagging on SWADE. This is SWADEcast. We obviously really enjoy this system, but I think the design, I get on one part the design of like, let's get rid of this all knowledge skills, this like open-ended, it's every skill and any skill, and that can be confusing for people, but it also got rid of a lot of the flexibility of the system. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is you're talking about like very specific things, but it's actually come up in the Facebook group, and a really, really simple one, and one of those where you're like, oh, wow, this kind of, the extremes tend to show where glaring problems are. What do you do with a character that had knowledge cooking?
Right.
This is a basic thing. This is a basic skill, but it's like, well, no, everyone could cook. No, but my character is a chef. He doesn't just like can cook. Oh. Well, and some people said like, oh, well, then that can be a performance. Yeah, but not all chefs are performers. It could be survival, but ranks in survival are like really broad.
I never in a million years would have thought that was survival.
Survival is making and preparing food. So like that's part of survival. So it would, but
for me, survival is finding food.
Yeah.
Finding food and being able to heat it up,
preparing it where it's safe to eat.
Yeah,
because I mean, knowing what is and isn't poisonous, knowing how to cook meat so it doesn't make you sick, Like,
sure. I get all of that.
Yeah.
But then if you're talking about like a chef, that's
it's much further. Now, the other funny thing is I also kind of see why they got rid of knowledge, because you can go too far into knowledge and like your knowledge skills don't always come up, and basically characters could accidentally become useless. Now, in Savage Worlds, it's hard to be useless, but you could like dump a ton of skill points into all these skills that never come up.
Right.
Defining interests by their design, if they cost anything, some of them you automatically get a number equal to half your smarts. But the ones that cost are 1 skill point per interest.
Mm-hmm.
So then it could be things like, all right, well, no, cooking would still involve some survival. So take a D4 in survival. Like you have some basic knowledge because you know how to cook meat, you know how to handle ingredients. But you're a chef, so it's a D4 plus 1, which is kind of better than a D8 when it comes to cooking, but that's it.
Right. But it could apply to other things as well.
It could apply to notice.
You're doing a notice
spotting if something's poisoned or seems off and all of this. And all of a sudden, especially, and this is again one of those things that a lot of people don't think of, is the psychology of the player. I know you haven't you weren't on many Savage Worlds and stuff that much, but I spout this crap all the time. People tend to forget psychology when it comes to game design. And players will remember bonuses. And players will actively come up with reasons to use them. You don't have to involve these bonuses. You don't have to involve these defining interests. They will.
That's their job.
They'll create the reasons.
Yeah.
Which fixes the 2 big problems with knowledge. You can't over-skill dump them, and the players will fit them into the game, not you.
And I would say that about the knowledge skills, generally speaking, if I was working with a player and as they're ranking up, and if I saw that they were just dumping a boatload of skill points into a skill that I know is never going to come up or is rarely going to come up. And you and I talked about this the other day, because I tend to loathe the common knowledge skill. But this is that whole, and that's actually one of the big things about SWADE, that I'm just mentally, I don't think it's a bad thing, it's not a criticism of SWADE, but it's just something I'm having and my players are having a hard time switching over to, which is you rarely, if ever, roll your attributes. Because I used to just have them roll smarts for things that would be common knowledge, right? Because to me, it's really about, if you don't have a knowledge specialization in something, then really what we're talking about is
how smart you are.
Well, but more specifically, it's common sense.
Yes.
Right.
Now, what's funny is before SWADE, common knowledge was just a smarts roll.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And it was called common knowledge. It's one of those, and again, I kind of get it. They were trying to simplify it where if the player is actively choosing to do something, it's a skill. If the GM's telling you to do it, it's an attribute. But they drew that line so hard, they actually kind of screwed up some of their stuff. Because you have to invest in having common sense now.
Right.
Now, everybody gets a D4.
Right.
But average is a D6.
Right. But see, here's the thing. Like, how often do you call for a common knowledge roll, a common sense roll?
I think that'll come up more often the more comfortable we get for the rules, because a lot of the skills I'm noticing actually say, if it's under these circumstances, just call for common knowledge.
Interesting.
Like, I found that when I was looking into the stuff for repair for you.
Right.
Because it was basically, but if it's not like specialized machinery stuff, like how to work a VCR and like a roll's needed,
right,
you roll common. Now, almost all of them are if a roll's even needed. So common knowledge is also like the skill for the GM that makes you roll for everything.
Right. See, and for me, and I think that's exactly it. That is exactly it, because I almost never have anybody roll for common knowledge, because if it's common knowledge, then it's something most people would know. So unless I had somebody who had like Clueless as a hindrance or something like that, or was playing a character from like a fish out of water, suddenly this is somebody who's never been in this universe or this world, and they don't have that basic knowledge of how this world works or what the etiquette is or whatever, then I might do it. But for me, like, common knowledge is probably the waste of a skill point that we're now required to take.
Well, luckily it is a core skill, so you get a D4. But here's the thing I find really, really funny about it. Okay? Common knowledge always comes up of if the GM even decides you roll for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost all of it. It should be like most of it you shouldn't even roll. The GM decides you roll for it.
Right.
How is that different than the passive rolls GMs do? How is that different than if the GM decides you have to make an agility check to dodge something? When do the players go, I'm going to check my common knowledge? They don't.
They don't.
The GM calls for it.
That's exactly right.
So it's already on the attribute side of things within the game.
Oh, that's a good point. But see, and that's again why I never call for it.
But that's the thing. Like,
it
was already on that side of it,
mm-hmm.
and it's still being used in that way, but now they're saying it's a skill.
Yeah.
And I personally feel like they did so that the skill list just wasn't too short, because people already complained that skill list got shorter. I think you could cut common knowledge and just call for smarts rolls like it used to be.
Right.
And it follows the design philosophy of SWADE still.
Yeah. Good point. It's a good point.
That's the part that bugs me more than anything with it. Because it does. It's still like, well, we changed it because it didn't follow the design philosophy. No, it did. It still did. And how you use it still does.
Right. Yeah. No. I totally agree with you. Now that you've said it that way, but then it also is consistent with sort of my approach with regard to common sense or common knowledge roles, which is I hardly ever, and I'm trying to think of like when would a player say I want to do this thing that I would say fits into common knowledge. I mean, maybe that would be something like the application of certain knowledge. So is it sort of the catch-all skill?
It kind of is now.
Like your thing of like, what would you roll for cooking? Well, common knowledge.
Say it's common knowledge.
Or, sewing. Somebody needs to sew something. Is that repair or is that common knowledge?
Yeah, it's to kind of fix the parts of the skill system they broke. And again, it's funny because the GM still has to call for it. All the other skills, so the funny thing of the skill is it's supposed to be the player goes like, I want to sneak up on someone. That is stealth. I want to do this. Okay, that's a skill where the GM will go, this happens, therefore you roll is an attribute. Well, yeah, it is kind of like, I want to set a VCR, well then roll common knowledge. But almost all the common knowledge ones are, well then that's not a roll, or the GM going, well, no, you need to roll for it, which could also be the GM going, well, no, the VCR is going to explode. You need to dodge. Mechanically, when it comes from a design philosophy perspective, it's no different in the whys.
Well, except that, if you were trying to set a VCR, then you would have to build in, the research roll to pull out, you have to do a notice roll to find the instructions, a research roll to read the instructions.
I don't play with those GMs.
And then a common knowledge roll to understand the instructions. And then a -4 to apply the instructions by using your electronics.
Because they were in Korean.
Yes.
But yeah, we still have like the open-ended language skill, but we need common knowledge as a skill. I love a lot of SWADE. The skills are... half the skills are where it bugs me. The other half I love.
It's funny because I don't dislike the skills. I like the idea of like science or electronics or hacking or occult as the application of those things. Like we're talking about like when you're doing the actual things. So you're trying to set up a like you're doing a paranormal game and you're trying to set up the equipment to capture a ghost or something like that, or to identify ghosts, right? Then you roll your occult skills, or you are trying to do some sort of sciencey thing. I'm such not a science person, but you're trying to you're in the lab and you're trying to create some sort of extraction of some sort of you're doing a chemistry experiment of some sort or chemistry activity of some sort, and so you have to roll your science skill. And so I like that because it is much more action oriented.
Yes.
Versus just knowledge oriented.
Yes, and it's one of those things I find funny, just as like that last touch-in on it, is so many people are like, Savage Worlds doesn't do supers and stuff like that. First, I don't agree with that, but actually, SWADE, where it falls down is in mundanity. You can no longer be like, well, I'm a chef. I mean, you can, and you can say it, but within the mechanics, they don't support it. And that's where these issues come in. Is these more mundane or like very focused things. Because also ETU, while it's supernatural and there's ghosts and all, the part we're having issues in is things like, what's my college major? Which is a very mundane issue.
Right.
And that's where you start going, oh, now everything's kind of falling apart. It's almost like looking at things on the quantum level of SWADE, apparently. It's just right there.
But maybe that's, let's flip it. Maybe that's where it's brilliant. Maybe that's how SWADE is brilliant. Because take all the mundane stuff, right, and don't apply a mechanic to it. Don't apply crunch to it. Don't make people roll for it. If it's something that's mundane, if they're talking about, I'm going to go in, I'm going to make a souffle, right? Then just let them make a souffle.
Oh, definitely. And the thing is from a game, most games and all that, I love it. The problem is when we come in and we lose track of it, but converting characters.
Right.
This wasn't how the game was built before. You could have all of that. So those characters, and now you get a bunch of stuff. No, but this is what I cared about.
Right.
And just like you said, you kept all the knowledge skills because they're actually important to your characters. There are some settings where that is still important.
Right.
So I mean, I guess my big takeaway would be just, at least unless they come out with a thing that tells us in the conversion doc, use defining interests. It fixes it. Yeah, it's not even a Band-Aid. It's like the cast. It's there. It works. Right. And it works really well.
You know, one of the things, I don't know if you've got like a link or something like that to a setting that that you think really defines defining interest really well, but maybe if you could put it in the doobly-doo, something that just
I'll look at a few of them. I believe Shintar is a really good one for it, but I'll check a few because this isn't going up for like a month.
Right. But I mean, something like that. That somebody like me who is too lazy and just wants you to do it. Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want.
Yeah, no, I'll drop a link in the doobly-doo.
Okay.
In fact, there's going to be clattering because...
There will be clattering. I want to know. I'm clattering right now.
Oh, Realms of Cthulhu uses it. Yeah, Shintar does do it. Mm-hmm. And there is a good bit of questions in it. As soon as I Googled it, most of them were like, what do they do? When do I apply them? Like, there is that confusion. If they just took that and clarified it like they did with a lot of the book and made it core... Mm-hmm. I don't think we'd really have like half the complaints we have.
Right.
I mean, Mike would still hate Two Gun Kid, but
well, that's gonna get me onto Double Tap. So that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, we'll get into that because I'm actually pro Double Tap as an edge, but we'll get into that. It's again game psychology.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's a whole nother. I want Mike and Dan here to back me up.
All right.
Double tap is the wild attack for ranged characters. Okay, let's.
It is now taking out double tap, but not taking out wild attack is kind of a middle finger.
That's what I'm saying.
But SWADE heavily favors melee. It does. But
right, SWADE does, but that changes from deluxe, right? And I feel really badly. Now, see, we just shifted.
Okay, no, but let's go. If we keep it in focus of how it affects from deluxe, because that is a fair thing to bring in. We won't bring up double tap anymore, Susan.
Right, but here's how I feel like the guys at Pinnacle just like rock in a hard place, right? So everybody bitches, pardon my language, for years about how Savage Worlds is just a game for ranged fighting. You can't do melee. It just sucks for melee, blah, blah, blah. Which, by the way, I never found at all.
It's not actually true if you use all the rules.
Never true. It was never true. My melee character in 50 Fathoms was brilliant and lethal as heck. And
Jokey was terrifying.
She was the bird killer, and that was the first fighter character I had ever created.
Jokey the bird killer.
I'm like, wow, but with because they had that special hook rule, basically is what it was in Fathoms. But I never thought it was a fair criticism of Deluxe that it favored ranged over melee. And then we switch over to SWADE, and I don't know if they intentionally were trying to modify that and buff up melee.
If you ask me, yes, they were. The design all points that way.
Right, so now everybody's yelling at them because now they favor, allegedly favor melee over range.
They do. Because I can sum it up in one very simple section of the book. Dual wielding. If you wield a weapon in each hand, you get for melee, you get +1 fighting. For range, you have more ammunition and don't need to reload as often. That is not equal.
Oh my god.
That is not even close to equal.
Where's Mike? And
But
it's funny
there's a lot of little bits. Again, when you dissect it and you look at it from a design standpoint,
yeah.
it's favoring melee. But that sums it up right there.
Right. And it's funny because I am now like in the ETU, I'm playing my first really like ranged character who I'm trying to focus on being a ranged person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I really like, are you kidding me? Like what are my basic combat moves? And the whole thing about like reloading, and I don't know what your house rule is.
We've discussed this.
Right.
I think readying a weapon should be equivalent to one reload action.
Right.
I think that's fair. I think drawing a weapon and loading a bullet are equivalent. That means a revolver, you could spend an entire round loading 5 bullets. You can't put all 6 in a round, but you can do 5. 3 actions and 2 readies. I think that's fair in 6 seconds.
Wait, say that again. So the drawing is free.
Well, this is more, assume you already have your gun out and you've emptied your revolver.
Right.
In one round, by my house rule, so we are getting off book a little.
Right.
I can ready a weapon. A bullet's a fucking weapon, people. I ready a bullet, and I have 3 actions to ready 3 more bullets. I got 5 bullets in my gun in 6 seconds. Now, Mike has said, well, you could technically get more than that. And yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but that's close. Right. And at the start of your next turn, you can use one more of your ready actions to finish laying the bullet on your next turn, and then fan the hammer and spray all 6. You could do it in that by making that one change, that one little tweak of loading actions can be like readying a weapon.
Yeah. See, for me, it's like, so you pop. What is it in the book though? I can't remember what the rule is. If you have like a clip,
clip is one action.
It's one action though. It's not a free action.
No, it's one action.
Okay.
So again, is it any more effort or time to draw a sword as it is to pop a clip in? If one, you can have up to 2 free in a round, you should be able to have those up to 2 free in a round. Because it's not infinite. It's not all the free you want. You can ready up to 2 weapons in a round for free. After that, they're actions. So.
Right, no, but my whole point is that if you're popping a clip, if it's the same thing as drawing a weapon, then popping a clip should be a free action.
Yes.
So that you don't add, that's my whole point. That was the only thing I was saying.
And I'm saying and let it count as one of the readied weapons.
Right.
So it's free asterisk.
Yeah.
Limit 2.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that.
No, that one tweak, I think, fixes it. Now, granted, yes, it does mean things like muskets can be like loaded in 6 seconds and stuff, but you can spend your whole turn spending 3 rounds doing that anyways. And the weapons you really, really care about with that should take a long time, you could have just tweaked the numbers for.
Right. I have no idea how we got on that, but
we were talking about melee being favored, and the new reload times hampers ranged.
Right, yeah, it does. That was my point.
And I like it in theory. Again, in theory. But that one little tweak makes it work a lot better. Yeah.
I do love that drawing your weapon is a free action now.
Yeah, I love that it's up to 2. I appreciate that.
Right. And I love the fact that, because, as a GM, I would always be like, okay, are you guys doing anything else? So, I was even like, because it always bugged me to have to make them draw their weapon.
Have your weapons drawn before initiative.
So are you? But I would never tell them that. So anything else? Where's your gun right now? So I forgot. Are you holding that in your hand yet? Okay, yeah. All right, good. Let's go.
And I do get this concept of you got ambushed, you're not prepared, and Sure. The surprise round mechanics already cover that.
Right.
We didn't need the draw action.
Right.
To further cover it.
Right, that's awesome. So, all right, so we have just gone. Well, we kind of created a second topic that was not.
Yeah, I think I don't know what I'm titling this. It might be off the rails. Conversions off the rails. Yeah, there we go.
Or you could just call it "Damn it, where's Mike?"
Yes, doing it. And it won't have either of our faces on it. I'm gonna find the dumbest picture of Mike possible, where he just looks as confused as possible with a big question mark.
Well, did he or did he not send us a picture of his?
Uvula? No. I did not let him send the dick pic of the mouth.
Yeah, that's just.
But yeah, no. that is a big thing to consider, though, when converting, is melee characters are going to be beefier. They just flat out are in this new edition. Spellcasters are going to be holy crap powerful now. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say, of all the things people have complained about, like, casters are too powerful, I don't have an issue with the 5 points per hour recharge. I don't. I love that, actually.
Right. Well, I don't understand why people have a problem with that.
It recharges too fast. Well, here's the thing. Unless you force a ticking clock on your game, at the table, there's no difference between I wait an hour and I wait 5 hours.
Right.
So it just keeps things moving. It keeps players from going, no, I'm the caster. We all have to stop.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's like most of the times when you're engaged in, like, you know, where you're going to be using up all your PowerPoints, right, is to me, I kind of equate it to the golden hour for healing. Like,
yeah,
like that's that time that you're recovering.
Mm-hmm.
Is essentially what it is. And I know they're not purely equivalent, so please don't everybody.
There's a lot of equivalency in it, though, because when you start going into edges that let you take fatigue to get power points, and that takes an hour to reset, it's a good comparison. Nothing's an exact comparison. That's called a duplicate.
Right. Right. Well, and of course, now people are going to say, well, no, it's more equivalent to natural healing, and that takes either 4 hours or a day, or depending on what rule you
5 hours or 5 days.
But I thought they changed.
There's a new setting rule.
New setting rule, that's right.
And I love the new setting rule. You get to roll every day.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, like 5 days might be more accurate, but they should have just said 7 and called it a week. Because again, the mental bookkeeping would have been easier. In my long form ETU games, where it's like 1 XP per session, we run kind of in real time, I just do it as a week. I tell people ahead of time, we're just doing per week. Because we're going to be moving multiple weeks at a time.
Right, right. Well, actually, I like
open graves, break their arm, and have a broken arm for 4 months, I think, in one of my campaigns.
Oh, my God. Well, my thing is that I liked the Flash Gordon setting rule, where natural healing was 4 hours.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's do that. Let's play that.
There's, I'll send you some links. You need to look at the stuff by Triple Ace Games. Triple Ace Games makes pulp settings.
Right, right.
And they have rules like, all right, we started a combat encounter, everybody gets a Benny. All right, scene, we're going to a new scene, everybody gets a natural healing roll. Because it's pulp.
Right, right.
Like, you're not all better, but you get a chance to recover some.
Right, right.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with that. I like it at 1 day. Personally, I think that's just, it's a good, clean, easy to remember. It's a new day, heal. Exactly. Also, converting people from other games where even, yes, a lot of newer games you full heal in a day, but even the old games were like you regained X amount of health per day. And that was hard to get some people out of that headspace of, no, it's 5 days.
Right.
So I make no progress in 5 days? No, not mechanically.
Well, and my games are actually like I could have, I've had games where it's like literally 2 or 3 sessions are in the same day, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just it's a great, it's very like suspense, mystery. They have to like go through all these bells and whistles. So this idea that somebody's going to have, like, for example, I had somebody who was fatigued, and she had the same level of fatigue for 3 sessions.
Oh my God. Ouch.
And there was like mechanically, I'm like, well, okay. And the thing was, she was fatigued from being tired because she hadn't slept the night before. So I'm like, okay. And she's like, how do I get rid of this fatigue? And I'm like, you
sleep.
She's like, okay, can I sleep now? And I'm like, no, you're driving. I'm like, maybe.
No, that actually reminds me. The last ETU game Beth was in, my wife, our in-person game, we had 4 sessions on Halloween in-game.
Oh my gosh. Because
I tend to do, and I don't want to do too many spoilers because you're in this campaign, but the second plot point is called Return to the Roost. Mm-hmm. And I like to have that one take place on Halloween. You can kind of use time of the year bonuses where it's going to help you guys with one of the things. But at the same time, one of the players accidentally sold their soul to part of their soul to a crossroads demon that's like the head of a sorority. And they knew there was a Halloween party that night, so they also wanted to break into the sorority house. And then they talked to Jackson Green, and he was going to go check it out while they ran and did Return to the Roost. And Jackson got captured. So they had to run all of Return to the Roost, break into the sorority house, find Jackson, face off against the Crossroads Demon. Like, it was a campaign in a night.
Yeah, I need to make notes. Spoiler alert.
The Crossroads Demon stuff was not in the plot point. That was just me.
That is about our 4th tangent.
Yeah,
So
it's
we're totally on track.
It's a podcast. This is why it's Where's Mike?
Yeah,
it's his fault. We blame it on Mike.
Damn it, where's Mike?
Also, I had to test out my new microphone before Friday. Mm-hmm. And, well, this is a good test.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And
I have to say, thank you very much for slipping us the sort of preview copy of the recent episode of Baytown Mysteries. I have to say, I am digging all the special effects.
Nice. I was hoping. Are you digging the music and all that? Because I dropped like, I think $30. No, it was $80 for 10 tracks.
Yeah.
But I own the rights, like I have royalty-free rights to them, so I can publish it. And then I have a good spot for sound effects. So I've been trying to layer in sound effects where I can. There's places I want more sound effects. Mm-hmm. I couldn't find a good sound of a car pulling into a driveway. I really wanted one for when Miss Simmons pulled up and stuff. And I'm not going to go out with a boom mic and like, all right, it's not that important.
Back up again. No, I thought it was really great, and I'm looking forward to people being able to.
How you liking the shadow layer whenever shadows talk?
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's great.
I don't know if you caught, once the shadows showed up, all the background music had that layer put onto it.
No, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I like little subtle things like that. Like, again, your magic when you slip backwards in time. Previews. I had a VCR rewind. It's like...
Yeah.
And I just slowed it way down. So as you're going backwards, it's like... And it came out really cool.
Yeah.
I really love that effect.
I've not seen that section yet.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you actually haven't gotten through all of the new session.
No,
Okay, yeah. Yeah, when you slip through the 4th dimension, which I guess this is like spoiler talk for Baytown, too, because the more I'm talking about and figuring stuff out, I think a lot of our magic is like dimensional work. Because again, with Monster of the Week, you don't want to plot too much out.
Right.
But I want to kind of have a web of what the actual dimensions are.
Right.
Because it's one of those common things that everybody thinks, like, we're in 3-dimensional space. You're at a minimum 4-dimensional space because you have time. Right. But in a world where there's magic, is magical energy a dimension? The same as time is a dimension. Mm-hmm. Is the soul a dimension?
Right.
And then, like, is the shadow realm, like, 2 dimensions of dimensional space, but also this, and this dimension? And maybe some have certain amounts of dimensional space, and, like, some don't have magic, some do, some don't have the soul, some do, stuff like that. So I can give you guys a lot of places to go where you're not actually going in different places and building the lore.
Right. I'm very excited about it, I have to say. And things like, but one of the things, like, when I was listening to it, is it makes me want to, like, use the magic more just so I can get the special effects. But I do think it's funny that because I lack imagination personally, my characters' incantations, like, how, like, in Harry Potter, they would have, like, a single word they would say when they were casting.
Oh, God, we didn't make you have an incantation when you saw Back in Time. Was it rewind or flashback?
Well, it's going to have to be, like, is what I'm going to actually say whenever I do, okay, I'm going to use magic to look back in time. And so I'm going to have to work on that particularly.
And then your eyes go white and you freeze as you're slipping through the 4th dimension.
Right. But I like the
which is terrifying in a way.
Like her incantation for putting up the wall is vroom.
Yeah. I love your bolts of pew 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 pew.
Yeah, pew 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 pew. So that now we're pushing probably like an hour.
Oh, we're probably beyond an hour. All we really have now is, the outro. So we have gm4hire.com, number 4. That's where you can find the right GM for your game. We have open seat games. We have one-shots, all of that stuff. That's what mainly funds this channel. This is also part of the GM Table Podcast Network, GM Table YouTube channel. donate to the Patreon to help support this, Baytown Mysteries, Savage Worlds for Beginners, the entire Crash Course series, all of that great stuff. But until then, we'll catch you guys next time.